Hitler's consolidation to power, January 1933 – August 1934. Hitler was made Chancellor in January 1933, and he demanded that the Reichstag should be dissolved, and in result of this demand there was a call for new elections in March 1933. To gain a majority in the Reichstag, the Nazis need to discredit the left wing and exploit the fear many Germans had of communism. Reichstag fire, February 1933. 27th of February, the Reichstag building was burnt down. The Nazis blamed the communists, claiming that it was a part of a left-wing plot to seize power. Marinus van der Lubbe, a young Dutch communist, was arrested and found guilty of starting the fire. Hitler demanded Hindenburg to take action. This resulted in the introduction of the Decree for the Protection of People and State on the 28th of February. This gave the government sweeping powers to suspend civil liberties and freedoms that had been granted in the Weimar Constitution. This was mainly to restrict communists. Across Germany, Nazis were appointed as local police chiefs as enemies of the region found themselves in protective custody. They weren't given a trial. The Nazis used the SA and the SS to intimidate opponents. Other parties had their meetings banned by the Nazis or disrupted by the SA. Elections were held on the 5th of March. The Nazis failed to gain a majority, but only gaining 44%, whilst the Communists gained 13% and the Social Democrats 19%. This was after the Nazis arrested 4,000 politicians in opponent parties. Enabling Act, March 1933. Hitler wanted to introduce laws without the approval of the Reichstag. To do this, he needed a majority of 2/3 in the Reichstag. Hitler achieved support from the Centre Party by promising to cancel the protection of the people and state. The Enabling Act was passed in March 1933. The SA and the SS surrounded the building before the deputies entered, intimidating them to sign the act inside. The Enabling Act symbolised the end of democracy. Hitler could make any law he wanted for the next 4 years without the approval of the Reichstag. Hitler could now alter the constitution to suit the Nazis. The Völkischer Beobachter welcomed the Enabling Act with the slogan, "The day of the Third Reich has come." Within 4 months, Hitler had eliminated most of the remaining political opponents. All the groups in Germany had been coordinated under Nazi control from this point on. Dealing with political opponents, Gleichschaltung. 7th of April 1933, laws were passed that removed Jews and political opponents from jobs in the civil service and of legal profession. 2nd of May 1933, after Labour Day, all trade unions were banned and their offices closed down. They were replaced by the DAF, the German Labour Front. 14th of July 1933, the law against the formation of new parties was passed, declaring Germany a one-party state. The Social Democrats had been banned on the 22nd of June, and the Catholic Centre Party had wound up on itself on the 5th of July 1933. January 1934, the law for the reconstruction of the state gave the Nazis control over all Germany's state governments. This law legitimized Nazi control over the governments rather than using terror through the SA to intimidate them. Gaining support, March 1933, Day of Potsdam. Hitler used this day to align the old imperial forces with the new nationalist forces. This way he would win over the army. March 1933, Hitler set up the Ministry of Propaganda, which was led by Goebbels. July 1933, the Concordat with the Catholic Church was signed. The Catholic Church was guaranteed religious freedoms and the rights to conduct its affairs in groups. The Pope and the Church then agreed to stay out of any political affairs in Germany. Night of the Long Knives. The SA began to threaten Hitler's authority, especially their leader Ernst Röhm. He believed in a second revolution which would reduce the power of the army and replace the army with the SA. The SA had 2 million men, but the German people disliked the SA. Röhm was keen on having this second revolution. Röhm's demands worried the German army, and the army leaders made it clear to Hitler that they wanted Hitler to take action. Hitler had two concerns: that by July 1933 the only group that could still challenge the power and authority of the Nazis was the army, and that many of the army leaders were sympathetic towards Hitler's aims, and they also welcomed Hitler's aims. Furthermore, Röhm's demands also alarmed other Nazi leaders such as Himmler and Göring. The Night of the Long Knives took place between the period of the 30th of June and the 2nd of July 1934. It was illegal, but it was needed. It is significant to Hitler's consolidation, after he used so many legal methods to gain power, that he resulted in an illegal method in which he needed. Röhm and other SA leaders were arrested and executed, along with some old political opponents including General Schleicher and von Kahr. Nearly 200 people were killed. The SA's influence was now dramatically reduced, whilst the more elite SA, led by Himmler, increased in power and influence. The army was quick to give its support to Hitler for his actions on the 30th of June, and after this the SA were slowly absorbed into the army. Death of President Hindenburg, August 1934. President Hindenburg was the only person who could stop Hitler, but on the 2nd of August Hindenburg died. A day earlier a new law had been passed combining the powers of Chancellor and President and giving all powers to Hitler to make him Führer. This law came into effect immediately on Hindenburg's death. Army Oath of Allegiance, 20th of August 1934. The Defence Minister, Blomberg, rushed to promise Hitler an oath of loyalty from the army generals. This became law on the 20th of August 1934. Now all soldiers and public officials had to take an oath of loyalty to Hitler.